William Cullen FRS, FRSE, FRCPE, FPSG was a Scottish physician, chemist and agriculturalist, and one of the most important professors at the Edinburgh Medical School. During its heyday as the leading centre of medical education in the English-speaking world, Cullen was also a central figure in the Scottish Enlightenment. He was David Hume's physician and friend, and on intimate terms with Adam Smith, Lord Kames, Joseph Black, John Millar, and Adam Ferguson, among others. He was president of the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Glasgow, president of the Royal College of Physicians of Edinburgh, and first physician to the King in Scotland. He was also, incidentally, one of the prime movers in obtaining a royal charter for the Philosophical Society of Edinburgh, resulting in the formation of the Royal Society of Edinburgh in 1783. Cullen was a beloved teacher, and many of his students became influential figures in their own right. His best-known students, many of whom continued to correspond with him during his long life, included Benjamin Rush, a central figure in the founding of the United States of America, John Morgan, who founded the first medical school in the American colonies, William Withering, the discoverer of digitalis, Sir Gilbert Blaine, medical reformer of the Royal Navy, and John Coakley Lettsome, the philanthropist and founder of the Medical Society of London. Special mention must be made of Cullen's student-turned-opponent, John Brown, who developed the medical system known as Brunonianism, which rivaled Cullen's. This was to have immense influence, especially in Italy and Germany, during the end of the 18th and beginning of the 19th century. Cullen was also a successful author. He published a number of medical textbooks, mostly for the use of his students, though they were popular throughout Europe and the American colonies as well. His best-known work was First Lines of the Practice of Physic, which was published in a series of editions between 1777 and 1784. Early life. Cullen was born in Hamilton, Lanarkshire. His father William was a lawyer retained by the Duke of Hamilton as factor, and his mother was Elizabeth Roberton of Whistlebury. He studied at the Old Grammar School of Hamilton, then, in 1726, began a general studies arts course at the University of Glasgow. He began his medical training as apprentice to John Paisley, a Glasgow apothecary surgeon, then spent 1729 as surgeon on a merchant vessel trading between London and the West Indies. After 2 years as assistant apothecary to Mr. Murray of Henrietta Street, London, he returned to Scotland in 1732 to establish himself in general medical practice in the parish of Shotts, Lanarkshire. From 1734 to 1736 he studied medicine at the University of Edinburgh, where he became interested in chemistry, and was one of the founders of the Royal Medical Society. In 1736 he began medical practice in Hamilton, where he rapidly acquired a high reputation. He also continued his study of the natural sciences, especially of chemistry. From 1737 to 1740 William Hunter was his resident pupil, and at one time they proposed to enter into partnership. In 1740 Cullen was awarded the degree of MD from Glasgow University. In 1741, he married and started his family. He became ordinary medical attendant to James Douglas, 5th Duke of Hamilton, his family, and his livestock. In 1744, following the Duke's death, the Cullens moved to Glasgow. In Glasgow he gave extramural lectures for the university on physiology, botany, materia medica, and chemistry. His great abilities, enthusiasm, and use of practical demonstrations for instruction made him a successful and highly popular teacher, attracting large classes. At the same time he also maintained a medical practice. In 1747, Cullen was awarded Britain's first independent lectureship in chemistry and was elected president of the Faculty of Physicians and Surgeons of Glasgow. In 1748, while in Glasgow, Cullen invented the basis for modern refrigeration, although is not credited with a usable application. In 1751 he was appointed professor of the practice of medicine, although he continued to lecture on chemistry. Edinburgh. In 1755 he was enticed by Lord Kames to become professor of chemistry and medicine at the University of Edinburgh. It was in Edinburgh, in 1756, that he gave the first documented public demonstration of artificial refrigeration. Cullen used a pump to create a partial vacuum over a container of diethyl ether, which then boiled, absorbing heat from the surroundings. This created a small amount of ice, but the process found no commercial application. From 1757 he delivered lectures on clinical medicine in the Edinburgh Royal Infirmary. On the death of Charles Alston in 1760, Cullen, at the request of the students, undertook to finish his course of lectures on Materia Medica. He delivered an entirely new course, notes of which were published in an unauthorized edition in 1771, but which he rewrote and issued as a treatise on Materia Medica in 1789. On the death of Robert White, the professor of the Institutes of Medicine, Cullen accepted the chair, at the same time resigning that of chemistry. In the same year he had been an unsuccessful candidate for the professorship of the practice of physic, but subsequently an arrangement was made between him and John Gregory, the successful candidate, by which they both agreed to deliver alternate courses on the theory and practice of medicine. This arrangement continued until the sudden death of Gregory in 1773. Cullen was then appointed sole professor of the practice of physic, and he continued in this office until a few months before his death. In 1783, Cullen was a co-founder of the Royal Society of Edinburgh. He died on the 5th of February 1790 in Kirk Newton, West Lothian, and is buried in the churchyard there. His son Robert lies with him. Influence. Cullen taught many students who would go on to influential careers in British science. Indeed, a large number of the doctors who taught in Edinburgh's Medical School from the 1790s to 1810s had studied with him, including the chemist Joseph Black, the anatomist Alexander Monro Secundus, and the naturalist John Walker. Cullen's emphasis on the practical benefits of chemistry made his ideas popular amongst farmers, industrialists, naturalists and doctors alike. His influence on these fields was felt through the writings of his students, particularly in the books of John Anderson, The Aberdeen Agricola, and the lectures given by Joseph Black and John Walker from the 1770s to 1790s. Family. In 1741 he married Anne Johnston. He was father to the judge Robert Cullen, Lord Cullen, and to the physician Henry Cullen. Cullen's eldest son Robert became a Scottish judge in 1796 under the title of Lord Cullen, later Baron Cullen, and was known for his powers of mimicry. Publications. Cullen's most popular and successful work was his medical textbook First Lines of the Practice of Physic, published in 2 volumes in 1777 and expanded with each edition until it reached 4 volumes in its final edition. His first book-length publication was Synopsis Nosologiae Methodici, Cullen's very influential nosology, or classification of diseases. His next publication was also a medical textbook, and it dealt with the institutions of medicine, i.e. medical theory. Its full title was Institutions of Medicine. Part 1. Physiology, because it focused on physiology, which was traditionally only one part of the institutions. It went through 2 more editions. Work on his magnum opus, First Lines of Practice of Physic, occupied much of his time in the 1770s and 1780s, but he did manage one final publication. This was his 2-volume treatise of the Materia Medica, which was highly valued by other medical practitioners throughout Europe. Thus, the following works, with their dates of publication, comprise the majority of Cullen's oeuvre: Synopsis Nosologia e Methodici, Lectures on the Materia Medica, 2nd ed., Dublin, Whitestone, 1781. Digital edition of the University and State Library Düsseldorf. Cours de Materia Medicale, Paris, 1788. Digital edition of the University and State Library Düsseldorf. Institutions of Medicine. Part 1. Physiology. First Lines of the Practice of Physic. A treatise of the Materia Medica. Traité de Materia Medicale. Ubist von Boski Jon Edouard François-Marie. Erschinen. B.D. 1-3. Pavey. Sauveur, 1791. Digital edition of the University and State Library Düsseldorf. Trattato di Materia Medica del Signor Guglielmo Cullen. Involved, Dalla Decima Angelo. 2. ed. Erschinen. B.D. 1-6. Padova. Bettinelli, 1798. Digital edition of the University and State Library Düsseldorf. Cullen also published a few shorter works, which have not been included in this list.